Welcome to the Retire with Peace podcast, the podcast where we help you create a fulfilling and stress-free retirement. Each week, we bring you expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you plan and live your best retirement life. Whether you're nearing retirement or already enjoying your golden years, this podcast is here to support you every step of the way. Let's embark on this journey together and discover how to retire with peace.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Retire with Peace podcast. I am thrilled to have with us today Lucas Rockwood, who is the founder of YogaBody and YogaBody.com. Welcome, Lucas.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
So I've been familiar with Lucas for a couple of years now. I did something called a hip opening challenge that he has. I did that about 4 years ago. So I'm very happy to have Lucas with us to talk a lot about flexibility, mobility, why that's all important, especially as we age. But Lucas, I'd love to get a little bit about your background and how you got into this over the years, because this isn't how you started your career, but you definitely transitioned into all the yoga and flexibility work that you're doing now.
Yeah, so I was living in New York City and I worked in publishing. I started my career working in publishing in New York City, and I started doing yoga after work, like a lot of people do. And my yoga class suddenly became more important than my marketing job in publishing. And I found myself prioritizing my life and my schedule around my yoga classes in Lower Manhattan in Soho more than my work. And then, there was a lot of big shifts happened in my early 20s. I was in New York City during September 11th, and I lived and worked downtown, and my neighborhood got shut down for a couple of weeks, and there was dust in my apartment. And when these big things happen, which unfortunately most people have multiple big rug pull moments in their life, it kind of makes you reevaluate and think about where your priorities are and what you want to do with your life. And I had one of those big moments. It was definitely a big pivot moment for me. And I went all in on yoga and health and wellness and made a bunch of shifts in terms of my personal life, in terms of getting my own health in order. And I started studying and training and very quickly teaching yoga and health and wellness. And that led me to Thailand initially, and then to Hong Kong, and then eventually here in Barcelona, Spain, where I've lived for about 15 years.
Wow, that's great, right? So you've been all over the world and you've learned a lot just on your own. I shouldn't say on your own, but you, I guess, took the initiative to go out and learn. This wasn't necessarily just, sitting in college learning about, health science, which is nothing wrong with that for sure. But you really went out in the world and sought out what you thought was the best of the best, and developed your own practice out of that.
Yeah, what I've really become obsessed with is the things that stick. So I've been doing this now for about 22 years, I guess now. And so what's more interesting to me are the things that have stuck with me the entire time, and the things that have stuck with my students over time, meaning the things that really have staying power and lasting value. And I know a lot of your audience is in the second half of life, maybe the final chapters of life. And all of that stuff comes into really clear focus in terms of family and geographic location and quality time versus quantity time. And that's really what my work has come to be focused on, is how can I live my best life? And that, of course, is a moving target as the years go on with family and work. And how can I help other people live their best life? And when you put fitness through that lens, it changes the way that you approach it. There are lots of people who approach fitness from an aesthetic standpoint, and that's great. It's just not for me. There are people who, approach fitness from a competitive standpoint, and again, also great, but not really my thing. Our approach and my approach has always just been around what we call lifestyle fitness, being able to do the things you want to do, whether that's taking a cruise or traveling with your grandkids, or whether that is starting a business or taking care of a big lawn or whatever it might be. I always say that your best life, whatever it is that people are hoping for and excited about in retirement, is on the other side of a fitter version of you. And as soon as you use the word fitter, immediately people think about Instagram and chiseled abs and these people who have plastic surgery and all these. And again, to each their own. Everybody needs to age it whatever way they want to age. But when I say a fitter version of you, what I mean is, 10 to 25% more energy, strength, balance, flexibility. And what that looks like is just a richer and more fuller, fuller life in all of the things that people are doing.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that you brought that up, because I think to your point, when people think of fitness and health, They might think of, gee, I want to run a marathon, or I want to be able to do some big thing, which is totally fine if that's what you're into. But I think when people hear about flexibility, for example, they almost think of that as a nice to have instead of something that can really, really help improve their quality of life for decades. I think people look at it and they say, oh, well, this other person over here, they're really flexible, but I'm not flexible. So that's just what I am. I'm going to go do something different. But you really approach this flexibility, mobility, functional strength, however you want to term it, and combine that together as necessary, not just a nice to have, but necessary for a good quality life, especially in the second half of life.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a young parent. My oldest daughter is about to turn 20, and now I'm an older parent. My youngest is just turned 5. And when I was a young parent, nobody was surprised that I was rolling around on the floor with my daughter. But now as a midlife plus parent, when I take my 5-year-old to the trampoline park, or when we go to it shows up most notably at the trampoline park. All the other parents my age are all drinking beer and standing around. This is Spain, so people drink beer when they watch their kids. They're drinking beer and watching their kids bounce. And, I'm literally the only one there bouncing. And it's not impressive. 0 people are impressed by my bouncing skills, but it's more fun. And the reason I think that's relevant is it's really hard to see how it's going to change your life. And it's not really the obvious, but it's these little things. It's being able to not just take your child or your grandchild or your great grandchild to the trampoline park, but participate and get down on the floor and interact, and maybe have a big day of travel that might involve multiple connections. And at the end of it, you can handle the jet lag. That might mean, I don't know, walking up a whole bunch of stairs to see a lookout point. And again, it doesn't show up every day, but I actually find that in the second half of life, and especially in retirement, people are faced with these really simple physical stuff that, again, it's nothing to even write home about, but it's those. I live near the Gaudi Park here. I'm working here near the Gaudi Park in Barcelona. And if you want to go to the top there's a lot of stairs. Yes. It's no joke. I've taken 25-year-olds who get gassed walking up that hill.
Yeah.
And, it's these kinds of things, and they actually show up a lot more. So when I talk to people who are in that phase of life, their plans are to spend a week in Rome, and they want to go to Florence, and then they want to visit their kid who's doing a Erasmus year in Australia or whatever it is. That takes energy. That takes strength, and it doesn't happen on accident. And you can accidentally be in okay shape in your 30s, maybe in your 40s, but 50 plus, nobody does that on accident. It's all intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. Even to that point, you start getting to an age where you strain a muscle just rolling out of bed just because you moved funny. So, and that's really where a lot of that strength training, that flexibility training, a lot of that really comes into play, where if you're not regularly exercising as you're talking about, it's very easy to injure yourself doing a mundane thing of picking something up off the floor or just moving incorrectly. What can people be doing then? You talk about the need for this strength, this flexibility, however you want to term it. What can people be doing on a regular basis? What can they do consistently to stay strong for a long term?
The answer is in your question, which is a great question. Consistency is really crucial. The hard thing is it's so difficult to see ourselves in different phases of life. I've just, to speak to your audience directly, I've only started to really entertain the idea of retirement, even as a concrete concept. Just in the past, I just couldn't even, how could I possibly stop working? How could it ever happen? And these things come into focus. It's really hard from a health and wellness perspective to forget that you're just not made of bubblegum and magic dust anymore. You just aren't. And you remember when you were, and people remember going out and staying out all weekend and partying in university or whenever it was. And you're just not like that anymore. And to share a relevant story, my middle son just turned 13, and we were on holiday 2 weeks ago, and he decided he wanted to get in shape this summer. He did two workouts, Dave. And both of them were about, 18 minutes long. And, I kid you not, he has muscular definition on his arms, and his chest is bigger. That sort of response would take me about 6 months. And And the reason that's really important is just remember, like, you just don't get as much wiggle room. He can do whatever he wants all summer long. He can do 2 workouts and he's back in shape. And I'm exaggerating, but only slightly. The ability for the adaptability and the malleability of a young endocrine system, so your hormones, and a young metabolic system, so your cellular turnover and your protein synthesis, it's just, those days are gone. And so what that means is you really, if you equate it to something like a 401k, which is just so incredibly boring in the short term and so incredibly exciting in the long term, if you equate it to something boring like, I don't know, an ETF, or let's say you're investing in bonds or something, and who's really that excited even about amazing bond returns that we're getting now? It's still 5%, or it's good, but like, you're not like trembling hands, shaking, exciting, but this is the way that fitness is in the second half of life. It's just, you look at the math, and you look at where you're going, and you look at how many years are left, and you say, I need to force myself to get committed to this so that I can enjoy the excitement that comes later. So really what it comes down is you just get less wiggle room. And so what you find is as people get older, they tend to drink less or stop drinking. They tend to have less cheat days with meals, or maybe no cheat days. And it's not about being super strict, but it is understanding that you can't have that. You can't fall off, or if you fall off, you might really, really have a loss of function. And so an injury in the second half of life, a fall, a bone break, the biggest risk of these is the recovery might not happen. And all of us know somebody who had an injury. Maybe they pushed too hard doing something they shouldn't be doing and they blew out their ACL, or maybe they slipped and broke a hip. And these kinds of things can be life altering in the second half of life. Whereas in the first chapter, people can come back from just about everything. And so in terms of what people should do, something every day all the time, and nothing extreme, and cross training, which sounds so just complex and ridiculous to somebody in their 20s, is really, really crucial when people are older, meaning doing a mix of things, not just weightlifting, not just pounding the pavement running, not just Pilates. This idea of, it's like a diversified retirement portfolio. Most people are going to have something in real estate and something in bonds and something in a index fund. And this same kind of balancing needs to happen, not because you can't get lucky and have your S&P 500 index just blow up one year, but that can certainly happen. But you can also have a terrible down year, and that's not what you want when it comes to like your knees or your lower back or your metabolic health. And so it really is a crucial thing that people do a little bit every day, in the same way that people are going to invest in their retirement every day, and diversify what they do. And the simpler things that people can do are usually where we get the highest compliance in terms of follow through. So a set it, forget it plan, again, to use the retirement analogy, and smaller investments of time I've found are really better for people. What that really boils down to is we encourage people to think about 5 hours per week total as a minimum. And we usually encourage people to think about 1 hour per day, 5 days per week, with 2 wildcard days where maybe you do something, maybe you don't do anything. If you do, that's great. If you don't, that's also fine. And 5 hours a week is enough to get results, but it's not so much that it feels like your entire life has to change. A full half of that is, walking and or jogging or cycling, something cardiovascular, ideally outdoors. And so usually that's just a net positive for people once they get it done. And so then what we're really talking about is, 2.5 hours of what looks like body weight strength and stretching and these kinds of things. And for the people who are attracted to our approach, which again is this lifestyle fitness approach, let me do what I can from home to live my best life, not to stand on podiums or win awards or take my shirt off on Instagram. With that in mind, this approach has been really, really effective for us. So that's usually what we recommend for people. Can you get away with doing less? Maybe. As time goes on, usually not. Could you benefit from doing more? Almost always yes. Should you do double that? I don't know. For many people, that might actually be too much, and they might have a difficult time in terms of managing their recovery and things like that. But that's hopefully a helpful rubric for people to start from.
Especially mixing in all the different pieces. Like you said, if you do it in 1 hour blocks, you can get some cardio, you can get some strength, whether it's body weights or working with bands or even weights. But then you're still talking about yoga for both strength and mobility, flexibility, and then also working on stretching to keep everything nice and flexible, so that way you don't have muscles and joints pulling on each other because you're not flexible enough. And like you said, that's something you can all do in an hour a day. But it's also important to realize that, to your point earlier, when you restructured your life, you're talking about when you're younger, you really started focusing more on the yoga than the work that you were doing. I think a lot of people think of exercise and just being healthy as the extra thing that they do after everything else in life, where it's not that the other stuff isn't important, but exercise really is a daily requirement. Like you said, even if it's not every single day, you can take a day off or something, a week or 2 days off, whatever your body needs to recover, or if you just have crazy things happening in life, that's fine. But I think it's helpful for people to shift their mindset and think, well, no, exercise is a critical thing that I really must do almost every day in order to see the gains over the long term.
Yeah, another thing that is really helpful. So that's the stick motivation.
Yeah.
Do this or else.
Yeah.
The carrot motivation is, a lot of people don't realize how much better they can feel. And there are people listening, I'm sure, who were Division I athletes, and there are people who performed at a really high level. Unfortunately for them, the rest of their life will be a physical disappointment.
Yeah.
For the rest of us who, we never stood on a podium. We never had a stadium of people cheering for us. For the rest of us, surprisingly, if you've never tried before to be healthy in a structured, meaningful way, you're going to be shocked by how much results you can get. I'm not saying you're going to win awards. You're not going to go back to your collegiate days. But if you haven't tried that, if you've never experienced what a fitter life looks like, it's really remarkable. And there's a whole, it's a lot easier to be an age group athlete than it is to be a collegiate athlete.
Yes.
And no matter what your goals are, it's really, really interesting. You can feel a lot better, a lot faster, really noticeable marked difference in strength and mobility and your stamina and energy. And, 1 to 3 months, most people are noticing pretty significant stuff. And if you carry on for years, this stuff really compounds. And especially when people get into, there's 2 decades where people really get hit. One is their 40s and the other is their 60s. And exactly when it's going to hit is different for different people. But those are usually the market drop off areas where something happens. People go, whoa, I just took a big, it wasn't a progressive decline. It was a stair step change in terms of energy or strength or stamina or cognitive stuff often happens in 60s. And if you can invest, if you can have the foresight to understand that this is one of the best tools you have to hold on and to slow down and pull the emergency brake and slow your roll towards the natural decline that, of course, is coming for all of us, then it can be a really exciting time for people to get motivated about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing up that carrot. So I've mentioned a couple times previously on this podcast that I did a specific program. I needed my own reset. So I did a specific program that was 2.5 months long. And you had to exercise an hour and a half a day, drink a gallon of water, follow a diet program.
75.
It is. You know this one. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little more extreme than probably maybe most people would.
Sounds great. I love it.
Yeah, but
love it.
But to your point, people they assumed that I was miserable, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I'm like, I feel fantastic. I actually didn't want to stop. I was trying to figure out, all right, how, it takes a lot of time commitment to do all those pieces. But like to your point about the carrot and the reward and how you feel, people they look at that and they go, oh man, that must have been rough. You must have felt terrible. No, that was amazing. I felt tremendous, and I've just tried to keep that going. So when people are thinking about exercise, don't just use my stick mentality. Use Lucas's carrot mentality as well. You're going to feel amazing, and you're going to see those benefits. And like you said, you're not going back and playing high school or college sports by any means, but when you're middle-aged and older, you feel amazing after doing those things, and being able to keep that up and keep those habits really, really helps. Yeah. So what can people do specifically with you? How can you help people? I know you have YogaBody, you have online courses. You used to have some live courses. What is YogaBody doing? How can people come to you to get the help they need?
Yeah, my main focus right now is a program we call YogaBody Daily, and it's focused on little daily bites of strength and stretch, and then what we call steps. So 3 S's: strength, stretch, and steps. And the steps, whether that's walking or jogging or hiking or walking your dog or pushing a kid or a grandkid, that's what people do on their own. But the strength and the stretch for that part of it, my colleague and myself, his name's Camilo, we send out a new video every single day to thousands of people who join us for a 15-minute strength. It's almost all body weight. We do some resistance bands and a little bit of light weights, and then a 15-minute stretching routine. And then every Friday, we do a live group session with all of our members as well. So that's kind of become the backbone of YogaBody, but we've got all kinds of things going on, and we have a YouTube channel where people can find a lot of free resources, and we do a meetup here in Barcelona on Wednesdays if anybody's coming through, and we have training courses, and we're trying to kind of get back to pre-COVID travel and doing more events and things like that. But at its essence, what we really just do is focus on education and training and resources for people, specifically in the second half of life, training for this idea of lifestyle fitness, living the life you want with as much energy and strength and flexibility as you can, given the limitations that come with each decade of life.
Oh, that's fantastic. Awesome. So I highly recommend it. I follow you on Instagram and YouTube, so I highly recommend that other people do the same. Like you said, you can go to yogabody.com. You can sign up for just 15-minute daily courses with you guys, right?
That's right. Yeah, everything's there on yogabody.com, and you'll find our free resources and our YouTube, and we've got all kinds of different reference guides and things there that you'll find that we've compiled over the years. So it's a great place for people to land.
Awesome. Well, any final thoughts or action items you want to direct people to, or is it just really all about consistency? Visit us at yogabody.com. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, with health and wellness, I think what happens is, and this has certainly been a trap that I've fallen into as well, is we get really religious about things, and we're all looking for kind of a tribe to join, whether that's the CrossFit tribe or the 75 Hard tribe or the YogaBody tribe. And I always encourage people to figure out what works for them, and if it doesn't fit into anyone else's box, that's totally okay too. And what I mean by that is some people are just so passionate about the outdoors, and then they've been convinced that they need to go indoors to a gym because there's better. Don't do that. Go outdoors. People are so passionate about, pickleball, but it's really screwing up their shoulder. Do it anyway. Do pickleball. Like, screw up your shoulder. Live your life. It's so difficult to find something physically that you're excited about. So rare that if you have something, whether it fits into my paradigm or someone else's, or whether it's just something out there in left field, if you have something that is movement oriented and you enjoy it, do that and focus on that, and maybe supplement a little bit if you're getting injuries and pains and things like this. But I'll just share with you a story. I had a lifelong friend, and her father, he was 78 at the time, and he was a partner dancer. That was his thing. And he lived in New York City metro area, and he would go partner dancing every single night of his life and in retirement. And so that would mean swing dancing and ballroom dancing and salsa, and I don't even know the other dance modalities that he would do. And my friend, his daughter, was livid that he was doing this at age 78 because she was worried about his heart and all these other things. And my reaction was, couldn't pick a better thing to do all around for your health, for your heart, for whatever. And what a great way to go. Let's imagine he does die on the dance floor. Fine. Like, also fine. This is not jumping out of an airplane. This is not, riding horseback at age 90, which maybe isn't advisable. This is somebody doing the thing that they love, keeping them in shape, staying active. It's pro-social. It's, but this is a gentleman who not once in his life went to a gym or lifted weights or took a structured fitness class. More power to him. So if you have something like that, or if people listening have something like that, even if it's weird, like sitting on a Concept 2 rower in your basement with no lights on, and that's what you enjoy, do that thing. Because anything that you can stick with because of love rather than because some guy on a podcast told you to do it, that's going to be the thing that's really going to keep you going.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I guess that really falls into what's the best workout is the one you're going to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. What's the best gym, the closest one, and what's the best workout, the one that you actually follow through on. Yeah.
Oh, that's outstanding. Well, Lucas, I very much appreciate you joining us. That was fantastic knowledge you're dropping with us. And I love all the perspectives and how to approach this from a positive standpoint and really start early and build on this for a better life over the long term. That's fantastic. So thank you for joining us.
Appreciate you having me, and let's keep in touch.
Absolutely.